everybody, welcome to day 3, Breakfast with Bob, Challenge Roth edition. My name is Bob Babb, brought to you by HOKA, Fly Human Fly, SFuels, right fuel, right time, Master Spas, deboer wetsuits, Premium Plus Sports, and of course our Challenge Athletes Foundation. A gentleman who knows more about the details and knows more about our athletes than anybody on the planet, Mr. Thorsten Radde, joins us, and I totally butchered the last name. That's not bad. Pretty good. That's okay.
I'm used to the name being butchered by American speakers, so don't worry about that.
That's what we do. We travel the world butchering everybody's names. And
no worries about that.
Yes. I was actually so excited last year when I had Wilko from Poland, and everybody was like, I can't believe you got his name right. It's like I spent a lot of time figuring out how to do that. When you come to a race like this, that is such a classic event, how early do you start preparing in terms of, okay, who's going to do what?
I think the first information I get is like January, when I get ideas from Felix and Belinda, who we're going to have here,
yes,
who's going to race,
be, yes.
Who would be an interesting addition. I'm kind of involved in those kinds of discussion. And the full prep starts once there's a decent working start list in place.
Right.
So 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out.
Yes.
And then basically collecting all the numbers that I have for the athletes and try to come up with a picture of what would the race look like with that kind of field.
So,
and putting everything on paper then.
As of 2 weeks ago, or even a week ago, we would have sent Laura Philipp, overwhelming favorite, to win her first Challenge Roth.
Yep.
And then her nemesis, Annie Hawk, signs up. Now, I'm not sure if Annie and Laura are friendly. Everybody seems friendly to each other. But at the same time, has Laura ever beaten Annie?
As far as I know, not in the full distance race. I think I have 4 full distance races that they raced in, both of them.
Yes.
And it's 4-0 for Annie. So this is a big one for Laura.
Yes.
And I think the interesting part for Roth is for her is that her mindset has to shift completely from a week ago to what it's going to be now on race day.
Right.
I think a week ago she was thinking, looking at the field, maybe I can win this with 95%.
Yes.
I can do my own race at the front and possibly put time into everyone else. And then that shifted. Now Annie's in there, and now it's a duel between these two. And a lot of tactics come into play.
Yes.
And a lot of mind games will come into play, I guess.
Well, and it makes it fun for us because now you've got 2 great athletes, phenomenal athletes at the top of their game. And you know, okay, Annie's got to be thinking, I can give her X amount on the bike to be able to run her down. What is that X? What do you think she can give up on the bike? And it's not like Annie's not a great bike ride.
No, and I'm not sure whether they have a number in mind.
Yes.
From based on the last races that they did against each other,
yeah.
I think Annie was like 7 minutes faster in the marathon.
Yes.
So I don't know if she's at 100% because her prep for long distance has been pretty short. She's been having issues at the start of the year, but I think anything over 5 minutes. That's when I think things will get really interesting.
Yes. Well, and what I love is Annie doesn't go to a start line unless she's ready, and she has no problem saying, I've won this race twice. I want to come, but I've got a niggle, and I've got a long season, and I've got Nice. I got all these other things happening.
No, I don't think Annie will look for excuses if she loses against Laura on Sunday.
No.
It'll be a fair and square race, and she won't be the one saying, well, I didn't have much time to prepare, or I had issues at the start of the year, or I didn't have as many long runs as I would have liked. Annie's not going to come up with any excuses for that. So if she wins, if Laura wins, it'll be one she can enjoy, and that will add a lot of self-confidence to Laura's mind.
Absolutely. And when we look at the guy side of it, you've got a 2-time defending champion. When Magnus Dietliff won 2 years ago, we were looking, oh my God, we're going to have this battle with Jan Frodeno. He's coming off the bike. They're going to be right together. Jan's got an Achilles issue. He's out. Now last year, Sam Laidlaw. They go 357. They push the hell out of the bike, get rid of everybody else, and I'm sure they're thinking, we're going to have this battle, and before you know it, Magnus is by himself again.
Yep.
So this year, I'm guessing, do you feel like he's going to be by himself again, or is there somebody out here? You've got Daniel Bakkegaard, you got a number of different folks who can be a factor.
Well, I don't think Magnus will be alone coming off the bike.
Okay.
I think there will be someone with him, potentially Rudy, potentially who else we got? Jan Straatman is another one that could be an interesting addition there.
Now, is Tom Bishop ride well enough?
I'm not sure. Tom Bishop and another Brit, Josh Lewis, who might be interesting up there. I'm not sure whether they will actually go at the level that Magnus is riding at.
Yes.
Because both of them don't have any experience riding that fast.
For that long.
For that long. I think Jan Straatman possibly is coming here with that in his mind. Can I run 4 hours flat?
Right.
Whereas I think Rudy and Daniel for sure are having that in their mind that they can do that, and that they, unless Magnus does something crazy on the bike, they can stay with him.
Last year, if I'm Annie Hogg, I'm going, I had a pretty damn good race. Daniela Reef, when I started looking at you go 8:08, and I think the course record was 8:18 or something from Chrissy. You take 10 minutes off the course record, and Annie had really a spectacular day, and it's not like she was a minute back. She was in a different time zone. Daniela just had one of those races for the ages.
Yeah, I think Annie was disappointed with the result that she got last year.
Yeah.
I don't think she was disappointed with the race that she had last year.
No.
It was a good race. It would have been close to, I'm not sure whether she was under Chrissy's record at that time. She was a little bit over, I think.
And she was. I think maybe she won 21 or something.
But compared to, she was in a close fight with Chelsea. She was in a close fight with Laura Philipp, and she outran both of them. Chelsea pulling up kind of with issues in the middle of the run, putting a lot of time into Laura. So based on that, Annie would have to say, I had a good race last year.
Right.
I did what I could do. And Daniela was just someone, I don't know, from another planet, in another time zone, untouchable with that kind of performance.
The addition of the T100 series and what the PTO has brought to the table in the last number of years. I mean, it's funny because your timing and coming in and doing comparisons and putting stats together coincided with the creation of the PTO and really putting pros in a position to make a living. Mm-hmm. Right, more so than ever before, because they could be racing Challenge, they could be racing the PTO T100, they could be racing Super League, they could be racing Ironman 70.3. There's Ironman Pro Series. There is so much cool stuff that's happening right now, and it's hard for me when I was looking at somebody's results. They were 6th at the T100 in Singapore. I'm like, that's a hell of a performance.
Yes,
because you've got 15 of the best in the world. So when do you have to look at results differently now? Because it used to be you'd have 2, 3, maybe 4 good pros at a race. Now you got 15 of the very best every race you go to.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that the T100 Tour changed, is that we have 20 athletes on the start line.
Yes.
And you can argue about whether that's the right number or not.
Yes.
But that's 20 athletes who can win that race and are world-class level.
Yes.
So I think 20 of the top 25 athletes are in the world. So that's a really impressive field that the T100 Tour is pulling together. And that kind of racing, we used to joke that XYZ is multiple Ironman champion or multiple 70.3 champion. Then you look at the results and it was like a small race with
Malaysia, and there was 3 people there. Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
That completely changed. So now it's the other way around, where you have to look at results and, he was only 7th or she was only 10th.
Yes.
But it's in a world-class field, and that performance might have been way better than winning a 70.3 that no one showed up at.
Well, and what's funny about that is, I remember I was looking at, I forget who it was I was looking at, but Holly Lawrence. She had been like 6th and 7th in a couple of the PTO races. I think she won $70,000 with those 2 races. And you're going, okay, that's when you go to a race and it's $30,000 for 6th or $35,000 or $40,000. You have to look at these races totally differently.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem that a lot of athletes face now, is that all of a sudden there's so many options that they can take.
Yes.
So many different routes that they can take, and so many interesting routes that they can take, that they're kind of overwhelmed with making a choice and sticking to that choice. So we saw Lucy Charles all of a sudden deciding, well, T100 is one choice, and I thought I'd commit to that for this season. Now all of a sudden, Nice does look interesting too. I'm sure Ironman helped around with a little bit of financial support there
which
too.
They should.
Which is totally fine.
Ever want your defending champion not at the start line?
Totally, and she adds more to that Nice field than if she hadn't been there. So totally fine decision for her to make. But those switching their plans is also potentially a problem, because you change focus, you lose focus,
right?
You get kind of unsure. Is it the half distance that I should be focused on? Is it the full distance that I should be focused on? And switching around to a certain degree is possible, but it's not easy if you want to do that at the world-class top level that they're looking at. So it'll be interesting to see how those wide array of choices that they have is going to, well, maybe stabilize in the next couple of years. Right now, there's just too much going on for these athletes to, new shiny thing, puppy goes over there.
Somebody pay me here.
Yeah.
When I look at, when we were in Kona last year, and it was the women's only race, and I think we looked at, okay, who can actually win? I think we looked at 7. There was like 7 people on the right day. Fenella can win, Lucy can win, and people who could potentially win. Now, with Nice being even a way more brutal course, I know it's early. We don't know who everybody's going to be there. But when you start looking at it, do you say, okay, there's 10 women who can win this race. There's 6 women who can win this race.
I mean, it's one of the things that we discussed when we looked at the men's field last year.
Yes.
Basically, because it's a new course and because the course has different demands on what an athlete needs to do well there,
right?
That changes a lot of the dynamics. So potentially a Lucy Charles going off the front may have even better chances in Nice, like we saw with Sim Label.
Out of sight, out of mind. Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
And then the chasers don't know how far behind they are and how hard they need to push. Whereas in Kona, I think you have a bit of a better understanding of how the race flows,
right,
and what you have to do at certain points. So that opens the field even further than it would be if it was just another race in Kona. The demands favor the stronger bikers. So someone like Laura Philipp,
yes,
who climbs well and who descends well.
And isn't she been training in San Moritz?
Yes. Altitude. She did visit the course at the start of the year too, and trained there too. So there's a lot of things that open up that choice of who to consider as a favorite,
right?
Maybe even more. I think it always comes down to you've got like maybe 2 or 3 top favorites, and then you come up with between 5 and 10 other athletes who could, well, at least should be considered for a podium finish, and then you always have like a handful who are just there for the experience, even if it's in a pro field, who are unlikely to have a chance to do really well against these top names. But the level of racing has improved in recent years, and it's gotten closer and closer. So races are more exciting.
I look at, we started talking about rankings, and this person's ranked for Sam Long's ranked number 1, and this person ranked number 2. And the people we don't even take into account are probably the best athletes on the planet right now: Alex Yee, Hayden Wild, and we know the way they ride in those races. It used to be you looked at ITU racing as swim, cruise around, run fast, right? Then the Brownlees and Javier, it became we're attacking the whole day. It's a crit. You better be ready to hammer. And they changed that. So these guys seamlessly made the move from Olympic format, got Christian Blumenfeld, Gustav Eden. They were able to move quickly and successfully into longer distance racing. Who do you see for, because when the Olympics are over this year, I'm sure there's going to be some folks moving in. And the nice thing is 70.3 Worlds is December. The Olympics are like this month. So there could be some folks going, hey, I'm going to go try.
I don't think that it'll change things too much for this year's 70.3 Worlds, because qualifying is already over.
Oh, that's right, yes.
So qualifying for a top haul, even though the race is in December, closed at the end of June.
Which is interesting. I would have gone August. I would have gone end of August, just because I want some of those Olympics.
If you're only looking at top haul, yes, I would agree. But then that screws things around for the following year, because then you have a shorter qualifying period when it's in the summer again. So
that's right. Okay.
Tricky stuff.
Yes.
Maybe there's going to be some announcements about wildcards for 70.3 Worlds too.
Win the Olympic gold, like they did with Flora.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, Hayden's already qualified for Topol, and I think he's considered one of the big favorites for that. Let's see who's interested on the female side, whether Flora is healthy enough to decide it makes sense for her to try and go longer again. But those top names there should all be considered.
So Taylor Knibb goes to the Olympics and potentially medals in the Olympics. Then, now it's end of July.
In triathlon or in cycling?
Well, it's just triathlon to start out. So then she does that, and then she's already qualified for 70.3 Worlds. And now is she already qualified for Nice?
She would have been qualified, but she didn't validate her slot.
She needed to go and do a full.
Oh no, she would have had an automatic qualifier slot as 70.3 world champion.
Right.
But in order to validate that, she would have needed to finish 2 70.3s.
Oh, that's
and she
right.
did only
There's no
one
way,
that she validated for Topol. So unless she wins Olympic gold,
And
she won't be. She won't be in Nice.
Exactly. Well, the cool part is there's so many names out there that can come in and a couple years ago, I remember sitting with Gustav, and we were looking at his WTS results from 2017, and 30th, 28th, 19th, and then what does he do? He goes off and wins, Worlds in Nice, and then he wins Kona. So, but when I talked to him about it, he goes, "I knew I was on the verge. I knew." Because those looking at those results is even more confusing than trying to figure out who's going to be great at the longer distances.
Yeah, some things transfer over quite well.
Yeah.
So you can look at the top names in Olympic distance
they're running
racing.
and swimming well.
Swimming, yes. But I think it's even more those second tier of athletes who didn't quite make it as well in Olympic distance races that you also have to look at. So that's a huge number of names that you could potentially look at. I mean, or from this year, look at Katie Severis. I think she'd be one who'd be really interesting on the middle distance now that Olympic qualifying didn't work out for her. What's her second half of the year going to look like? Gwen Jorgensen, I'm not sure if she's interested in racing longer than Olympic distance, but she's also one that if her run transfers over well to the longer distances, it's the old challenge for her. Can she swim well enough and can she bike well enough? But she'd also be one that's very interesting to look at because the demands are slightly different. It's not about group riding. It's not about technical skills quite as much as you need for Olympic distance. So that could be very interesting for those athletes to transfer over. Or on the German side, there's a couple more who missed qualifying for the Olympics and who may look at longer distances. Caroline Pohle, Lena Meissner, who are having great results in the European races after missing qualifying for the Olympics, already transferring over quite well to the longer distance racing. So I think there'll be changes. It's not going to be, everyone always says, wait until after the Olympics and then the short distance guys will clean up long distance racing. That never really happens.
Every once in a while you get somebody who
you get one or two. But it'll be interesting additions to the fields, and it'll make the fields even deeper and even closer again.
Getting a Vincent Louis and getting some of those guys over and committing and saying, hey, I'm going long. I think it's going to be such a great addition. And it's just seeing what we've seen in the last year or so with Rico and, in fact, a number of those guys from 70.3 Worlds. Well, we got the third place guy, the fifth place guy, all Jan, Stratman, all those guys are coming over here. And they're going to be a factor.
Yeah, there's a lot of German athletes who went through the federation system on the short course distance, didn't quite make it to the national team level on the short course, and now are transferring over, have that excellent pace, that excellent training background on all the different environments. Sometimes they even train. I know Rico went with the German national team to Namibia for his winter training there. So there's still a lot of crossover and cross-pollination in a positive sense going on between the short course and the longer course guys, and I'm sure there's going to be a couple of names coming up that no one really has on their list right now, and all of a sudden we will. Just with the Rico, where did that name come from? Who knew that name before 70.3 Worlds?
Nobody.
Almost nobody. But there will be results and there will be interesting additions, and it'll change racing again. It'll make racing faster and closer again, tactics play more of a role. I mean, the type of race that we saw at 70.3 Worlds with that number of athletes
Oh my
at
God,
the
the
front.
position changes
Yes.
in the last 800 meters.
Yes.
It's crazy.
There was a lot of fun races going on.
Yes.
And then maybe you have a tail and nib going off the front and killing everyone.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people think, okay, this is Thorsten's. This is what you do. This is your living. You have a real job, right? This is your hobby. This is your fun.
Well, I am an IT consultant, and that's the main part where I make my money from.
Yes.
And triathlon was just a fun hobby to have.
Yes.
And now it transferred over into the territory where I can when I come to these races, I get paid for being here.
Yes, well, you
It's not
should.
like I'm getting rich of it, but
you love it.
it's a fun situation where you get paid for doing things that you'd enjoy, and maybe you do for free too.
Yes.
At least for some time.
Yeah.
But being paid for that is helpful, and it makes things all around much more relaxed and easier
Yes.
on the real job side too.
Now, were you a triathlete before this?
So I was a triathlete. The first race I did in 1988, which is one of a small German event. Back then, you had I think like 3 or 4 events totally in Germany.
Yep.
So first event that I showed up in swimming trunks and a cotton T-shirt had Dirk Aschmonite in there, had Roth in there.
Yep.
So they had all the big names because there just weren't any events back then.
Right.
I did a couple of long distance races between 2005 and 2010. So I did Roth in 2007 when Macca won. But that's a couple years ago and a couple kilos ago. So that's my way of staying within the sport.
Right.
Looking at the numbers because no one else did that back then.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I enjoy doing that.
Love it. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for taking so much time, and so people will be able to watch the live coverage online.
So what will happen is we have an English live stream that Belinda and Sebi are going to
Yes.
moderate. So they get information from me, and there's a German on national TV broadcast that I'll be mainly working
Helping
for.
with it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Sitting
Thank
back
you.
to
Thank you.
Sorry
for
about the
taking-
voice.
Your
but I
voice
hope
sounds
that,
great, man. I love it.
Came across well.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Thorsten's been our guest again. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to Breakfast with Bob, our Challenge Roth edition. Hold on. We will be right back.